from Asian countries. So we would like to welcome one and all for this very important session, which is Global Food and Nutritional Security and Sustainable Development through Major and Minor Pulses. I should mention that this is the first time that the Academy is organizing such an event as a part of that World Food Prize Foundation's program. The Academy is very excited to organize this session in collaboration with Indian Council of Agricultural Research, International Crop Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, International Center for Agriculture Research and Dryland Agriculture, and the World Wedge. Thanks to the Honorable President of National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, Dr. Mohapatra, for all your kind support and guidance to organize this program, and also the secretaries, especially Professor K.C. Vansal, for organizing, co-convening this session and for all your support. And also Dr. P.K. Joshi, the Secretary of National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, the Vice President and the Executive Council of the National Academy of Agriculture Sciences. We are also thankful to the Directors General and senior leadership of Indian Council of Agriculture Research, including Dr. Himanshu Pathak, DG ICR, who could not join this meeting because of some other engagement, but he has sent his best wishes to this program. Also, we are very much excited to have Dr. Sanjeev Gupta, ADG Oilseed and Pulses from the ICR. We are thankful to DG ICRISAT, Dr. Jackie Hughes, Deputy Director General Research, Dr. Arvind Kumar from ICRISAT, DG ICARDA, Mr. Ali Abu Saba, and also Dr. Shiv Kumar, Regional Director from ICARDA, DG the World Wedge, Dr. Marco Boprais, and Regional Director Dr. Ram Nair, for all their support and cooperation to co-organize this meeting. Now a bit about this event. As we know that like every year, the World Food Prize Foundation is organizing the 2022 Borlaug International Dialogue in this week and the next week. This year's theme is Feeding a Fragile World. And in this year, they are focusing on the nexus of agriculture, food security, and climate change, addressing adaptation and mitigation solutions to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. At present, the world is facing triple threat, and this includes COVID, conflict, and the climate change. And these embodies the multiple challenges the global food system is facing now and will be, unfortunately, we anticipate that in future as well. So the 2022 Borlaug International Dialogue is expected to address scalable solutions for adaptation and mitigation to limit planetary warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius and achieving the SDGs. The World Food Prize Foundation provided National Academy of Agriculture Sciences an opportunity to host this important workshop on global food and nutritional security and sustainable development through major and minor pulses. We are thankful to the World Food Prize Foundation and its leaders. Now, NAS, National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, selected this topic mainly because of the importance of the pulses crops in India, many countries in Asia, and sub-Saharan Africa. Although cereals are important crops for providing calories, but pulse crop play a very important role for both food and nutrition security. Furthermore, pulses crops, they also contribute to sustainable development, especially as they play an important role in saving water footprints and also very adaptable for the changing climatic conditions. In this context, India is a success story, and until recently we had its Director General, Dr. Mohapatra sir, and his team, that ICR played a very important role in enhancing crop productivity, crop production of pulses during last 10 years. Now, India is producing about 26 million ton pulses. And if you would like to see the data, 3 million tons have been added during last 5 years and about 9 million tons have been added in last 10 years. Thanks to the technology, policy interventions, and partnership of ICR with international organizations like ICRISAT, ICARDA, the World Wedge, and others. Therefore, National Academy of Agriculture Sciences is hosting this session with the major players in the pulse crops, and we are very excited to have all of you in this meeting. I saw several senior names who are participating in this meeting, including Dr. Anupam Verma, Dr. Masood Ali, Dr. Adhyay, many other senior people. I cannot mention all the names, but we are very much excited to have you all in this important meeting. Those of you who do not know NAS, because some people they are outside India, very briefly, NAS is a major think tank for agriculture research and development in India. The academy's role is to provide a forum to agriculture scientists to deliberate on important issues of agriculture research, education, extension, and present views of the scientific community as a policy inputs to the planners, decision and opinion makers at various levels. The academy publishes policy papers based on the recommendations emerging out of the scientific programs like this one organized by the academy. The academy also initiated a process to identify some important recommendations made in these policy papers and formulate projects to develop implementable action plan. And the academy has so far published more than 100 policy papers that are used by ICR and policymakers. We would like to avail this opportunity to thank our Honorable President, Dr. Mohapatra, for his leadership to NAS as its president. We are very excited to have very eminent speakers, not only from India, which includes Dr. Sanjeev Gupta, who is well-known scientist and policy makers and oilseed and pulses crop, but we also have a CARDA DG with us, Mr. Ali Abusawa, and Research Program Director from ICRISAT, Dr. Son Moyes, Regional Director from the World West, Dr. Ram Nair. So I'm sure that we are going to have very exciting session. And now, without taking any further time, I would like to invite our Honorable President of National Academy of Agriculture Science and former Director General ICR and Secretary DARE, Government of India, Dr. Mohapatra. Dr. Mohapatra, sir, floor is yours, please. And please join me in welcoming Dr. Mohapatra for this session.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv. Let me extend a very warm welcome to each one of you to this very, very important deliberation on global food and nutrition security, sustainable development through major and minor pulses. Thanks to Dr. Rajiv Varshney to start with, because he is the brain behind, made this decision to have this in collaboration with World Food Prize Foundation. And thanks to Dr. K.C. Bansal, Secretary of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, who worked in tandem with Professor Rajiv Varshney, who is also the Foreign Secretary of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, to design this program in detail and work in the direction of having a very, very fruitful session today. Contacting different experts, inviting them, and in fact, we are extremely happy that we have with us today Mr. Ali Abusawa, DG ICARDA, with us, and of course Dr. Jacqueline Hughes was invited, DG ICRISAT was invited, but we are happy to have Dr. Son Moyes, who is with us, who is going to actually deliberate on various aspects of what ICRISAT is doing as contribution towards kind of revolution that we have experienced in India in pulses production. Of course, we have with us our own ADG, Assistant Director General, Dr. Sanjeev Gupta, who has been actually a pulses breeder, has many, many significant contributions to make, who has in fact made in the past, and he is with us. He is going to make a presentation on the kind of developments which have taken place during past 5-6 years, and bringing in the process a revolution in pulses production. We have with us, fortunately, Dr. Ram Nair from World Vegetable Center. His rich experience again would help us to learn how things are happening at the world ways, and in addition to the experience of ICADA and ICRISAT. So we have these learned speakers with us, 4 of them with us, to throw light on various aspects of pulses, major or minor, and tell us where we are, how we are going to move further, and then move in the direction of food and nutrition security. Dr. Rajiv has already given the background, but very importantly, let me say a few words before I invite Dr. Gupta. Pulses, as it was rightly said, has been a very, very important component of our food system, more so in the context of India, because a large section of our population being vegetarian. So they largely depend on the pulses as a protein source. Whether it is a vegetarian population or non-vegetarian population, that is immaterial, because from time immemorial, the pulses have been, they have remained mainstay of our food system. And in fact, along with cereals, pulses are usually consumed is a major diet, part of our major diet. So the International Year of Pulses, and subsequently the kind of focus which was brought, and Government of India working very sincerely and consciously to increase production, that has really brought rich dividends. And Dr. Gupta would certainly make a presentation and highlighting what all could happen and how things happen, and what are the factors which contributed. In fact, National Academy of Agricultural Sciences had a brainstorming session on sustaining this growth that we have realized in recent times in India further by following a certain path. And what could be the elements there? What could be the factors which can contribute further in sustaining this growth in pulses production? That was deliberated. And I believe, those kind of policy guidelines and prescriptions would help us further in moving forward with regard to pulses production. Not only production, how to increase consumption. That's also very important, not only in India, at the global level. And production and consumption have to increase in tandem. Indian consumption is falling short of what is actually recommended with regard to the amount of pulses that is to be consumed per day, the per capita consumption. And similarly, at a global level, the consumption has to pick up. Then how do we really promote that unless we have a great deal of awareness created? At the same time, with regard to climate resilience, with regard to water footprints, the chemical footprints, and all that we talk about in the context of sustainable production system, pulses stand out, and they are crops which are being considered under the ecological benefits that accrue from agriculture, and also the ecosystem services which are delivered. In right earnest, we must be actually working on this and promoting this so that the ecological and the ecosystem benefits that we derive from pulses by growing pulses, that should be actually mainstreamed and taken advantage of. So that is the kind of message. The soil fertility, how it improves, the nitrogen fixation that takes place, and so on and so forth. So quite a large number of benefits that we can derive from pulses, in addition to the nutrition security that we talk about. At the global level, this awareness must be there, and it has to be actually further enhanced. In that context, this collaboration between the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences and the World Food Prize Foundation is praiseworthy. And I take this opportunity to sincerely thank Dr. Rajiv Varshney for making this happen, talking to World Food Prize Foundation that how we can collaborate and to deliberate on such an important topic. And that's how we are here. And I'm sure at the global level, there will be, kind of further action based on what we deliberate today, based on what we actually bring out in the form of recommendations or prescriptions. I believe that would be taken note of, and we together at the global level can make pulses cultivation more popular, and also consumption of pulses enhanced in order to address the food and nutrition security issues as well as the ecosystem issues that we confront with. With this brief note here at this point in time, because my time is off, and I'm sure we'll have very, very rich kind of learnings from these presentations which are going to happen. Without taking any more time, since Dr. Himanshu Pathak, I don't know, Dr. Pathak, you have joined? He was in another meeting, so I'm not sure whether you'll be able to join. So without taking any more time, let me invite the first speaker of today, Dr. Sanjeev Gupta, Assistant Director General, Oilseed and Pulses, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, New Delhi, to go ahead with the presentation. So Dr. Gupta has been an ardent researcher. He has been working in this arena of pulses, has rich experience, several varieties to his credit, and I'm sure it will be a very meaningful presentation. Dr. Gupta, and in fact, all the speakers, I had a request, if you can confine your presentations to the time allocated, that would be great. So Dr. Gupta, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable President of National Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Thank you, World Food Prize Foundation. Thank you, National Academy of Agriculture Sciences. Let me at the outset pay my great respect and reverence to all World Food Prize winners who have made this world, most part of the world, food secure. In 1965-67, there was an acute shortage in food grains in India. And our parents used to tell that there was a call from the leadership, and they used to observe the fast once in a week. Today, India is the second largest food producer in the world. India's food security program is largest in the world. The subsidized food for 2/3 of the population is being given, and that the wheat, it is from the 2.5 cent, rice 3.8 cent, and the total cost of this program is $20 billion per annum. That is equivalent to 3.4% GDP. During pandemic, India arranged another program, the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Vikas Anna Yojana, and in that Yojana also, India arranged to free ration to 900 million population. And addition to that, they have provided 1 kg of the pulses free for nutritional security of lactating mothers, pregnant women, and children, which are below 14 years. So I think this is the largest food security program in the world. Thanks to the government, thanks to our people who have made glory in the Green Revolution and who made the country the surplus in the food. Pulses are the climate and nutritional smart crops, and these are vital for defeating malnutrition and sustainability of Indian agriculture. India is working on 12 crops, 6 are now major crops, and rest 6 are the minor crops. And realizing the importance of these pulses, the International United Nations Conference, they have announced 2016 as the International Year of Pulses. India has witnessed the pulse revolution in this country. India is the largest producer, About 28% of the global production of the pulses comes from India. India is the largest consumer. 39% of the total bird pulses are consumed in India. India is the largest processor, importer, and I think India is the most important in the pulses program. Pulses somehow lagged behind during the course of agriculture revolution, but in recent year, India witnessed a phenomenal growth from 14 million tons, which were in the 2009 and 10, and which was stagnated for a decade. Now we have reached to 27.69 million ton, nearly double the production on the basis of the 2009 and 10. And this kind of revolution has been never ever in the history of agricultural development in this country in any crop. I think this has been due to the researchers, the farmers, policymakers, all have contributed significantly in the pulse revolution of the country. The major drivers of the pulse revolutions we can identify, it is access of the seed, good quality seed, and the fast-paced development of the varieties. Then the price support system, the National Food Security Program, particularly the mission which Government of India has launched on the pulses, and several other schemes of the government for the agriculture that has also helped in bringing revolution in the country. And that has impacted in increasing the availability of pulses from 45 gram per capita per day in 2015-16. It has reached now to 52 gram per capita per day availability. Dependency on import has reduced significantly from 6.61 million ton to 2.4 million ton. The rate of current growth rate, it is 5.1%, which is really enormous. If it continues, we will touch 46 million ton by 2030. But for achieving the goal, achieving the target for the self-sufficiency, if we have the growth rate of 1.57, I think this can be easily achieved. And this could be done on the backdrop that our pulses has a great shift in production ecology. From North India, 1971-75, it was equal proportion of 11 million hectare. The pulses were grown. Now it is shifted to the Central and South India, and it has drastically reduced in the North India. This shift was very conspicuous in the chickpea, when the chickpea was shifted almost from North to Central and South, and from 4.98 million hectare, it has now gone to the 2.4 million hectare in Central South. And similarly, from the 2.51 Central India, it has reached more than 7 million hectare in the Central and South. So this shift was very conspicuous. And because of that also, we have achieved pulses revolution. We can understand how much the resilience in our technology, our programs were there. The varietal development program in India was fast-paced during 2014-22. About 1,100 pulse varieties are available in India, and out of these, 30% varieties was released in last 7 years. So varietal development has at a fast pace, and we have reduced the crop duration in many crops. We brought disease resistance. We worked on biofortifications. We brought the varieties for the machine harvestable. However, historically, the genetic gain of pulses has been only 0.6% per year. We need to increase by 1% per year if we have to achieve the goal. We work for the resilience breeding, and out of 313 varieties released during 2014-21, 270s were the climate resilient varieties. These are very important because challenges are severe. Over 85% of pulses grown in the red-fed areas. Terminal drought and heat are very crucial. Fusarium wilt is widely spreading. Pod borer is continuing to create menace. And now the emerging pests are outfly and maruca, they are continuing threat. So on that background also, we are working for developing varieties for abiotic and biotic resistance. India is suitably harnessing the power of genomics, and last decade, we can acknowledge the decade of legume genomics. The first draft genome of pigeon pea was published in 2011, and subsequently, with the help of our CGIAR Institute, with the help of other institutes, we could have the draft genome of several pulses. Draft genome of Lethyrus, it is also underway. I think we'll have this year the draft genome sequencing of Lethyrus. Can you imagine such a huge genome? About 6 giga base pair. It is 3 times more than maize, 7 times more than tomato, and 2 times more than human. And this genome has, the people have taken a call to sequence this genome. And this is very important crop. It is really a climate smart crop. And it's really, it will be a great achievement in our future breeding programs. But the most important crop, that is lentil, we need to sequence. I think global efforts are required, and all of us should make efforts to sequence lentil. It is a very, very nutritious legume, and the genome is really huge. But I know the cost of sequencing is reduced. It was one time, it was a $1 million sequencing a genome. Now in the few $1,000s, it can be sequenced. So it is a call from us to sequence the lentil, very important crop. It is very important. The breeding resources will be available for our scientists. As I told, the lentil is a very nutritious grain legume, and it is regarded as one of the 5 healthiest food of the world. And one of our students, when he was pursuing the PhD program at North Dakota University, he came out with a very good publication revealing that the this lentil is a rich source of folate. It has 5 times more folate than any other legume crops. But in India, 15 to 20% population, particularly our lactating mothers and pregnant women and the children who are below 5 years, they are having severe folate deficiency. So 15 to 20% of the population in India is suffering from this folate deficiency. So my request is, I think whosoever is the lentil worker, kindly take up this crop in a big agenda to improve much more status of the folate, because health comes from farm, not from pharmacy. This is my point of message to lentil workers. This malnutrition across the world is really serious. Nearly more than 30,000 deaths every year is because of the malnutrition. It is equivalent to 1 death per second. In India, 800 million people are malnourished. More than 50% pregnant women are anemic. More than 80 million people are suffering from protein, calorie malnutrition. And recently, the zinc has received global attention because the 4 lakh children in the world, they are dying because of the zinc deficiency, next to the vitamin A deficiency. So we have taken agenda to biofortified our legumes, which can make our population nutritionally secure. And now biofortified traits are becoming streamlining in our breeding program. We have released 2 varieties which are having more than the threshold level of the iron and the zinc, and few breeding lines are in the pipeline. I think we'll come with the more and more biofortified legumes, and that will be the part of our nutritional security program and the government ambitious program of the National Nutrition Mission, Rashtriya Poshan Abhiyan. 2014, Honorable Prime Minister made a call to us that we should focus to increase the protein content per se in the legume. Thanks to our chickpea workers, they have come out with the one variety IPC 2005-62. It is having more than 26% of the protein content. and our efforts are there to improve. Some of the linkage directs are there in our breeding lines, like heat susceptibility, build, and grain appearance is not good. I think selection pressure is going on and will come out with the new varieties which are having high in the protein content in chickpea, because chickpea is the pulse which has been included in our midday meal program and in our rationing program. We have also worked in developing machine harvestable pulses, and that has been very important because not only this machine harvestable pulses, you can imagine 2.25 ton of chickpea we can harvest in 75 minutes, which takes 3 to 4 days by 3 to 4 laborers for harvesting such kind of the chickpea. So machine brings ease in cultivation, machine saves time, labor, and machine makes the crop remunerative. We have released 4 varieties which are machine harvestable in chickpea. I think our ICRISAT has also done a wonderful job in this, and they have also cooperated in giving some of the breeding line to us. And we have also developed 3 machine harvestable mung bean, which is now with the farmers. India has also worked on pigeon pea hybrids, particularly with the collaboration of ICRISAT. And it is only 3 decades of the hybrid research in pigeon pea. The first hybrid, it was ICPH8, it was released in 1991. And since then, that GMS-based hybrid was not popular. So we could develop the CMS-based hybrid. And recently, the government of India made a call to us that we should increase the area under the hybrid pigeon pea program. And I understand that hybrid and heterosis can be realized only in a well-managed condition. In rain-fed condition, the heterosis cannot be realized. So what we made a plan, we have to organize 5,000 demonstrations, large demonstrations, and we'll invite all private partnership to see that the potential of our hybrids. And then I think the pigeon pea program, hybrid program will go on the next step. India has also done on the GM pulses. 4 GM products are also available at the advanced stage in different labs, but regulatory restrictions are there for large-scale field trials. Recently, Government of India provided exception and exemption to the gene-edited plants, particularly the event of SDN1 and SDN2, which are free from exogenous DNA. I think this will accelerate the varietal development program in our pulses also, because it has demonstrated potential in wheat, barley, potato, and lettuce. And some results are promising in rice and maize. So I think that will be the great help to us to accelerate the varietal development program. The whole revolution in the pulses, it was basically the seed-centric, whether food, nutrition, resilience, income needs, all were around the seed. The SRR, seed replacement rate, has been increased considerably from 30 to 61%. Varietal replacement rate in some of the crops like chickpea, mung bean, and lentil, it is more than 80%. And Government of India made a special provision to create 150 seed hubs worth of 450 crores. And now 1,17,000 quintal breeder seeds are available in these seed hubs. I think these are some of the efforts which has improved the access of the quality seeds, but more and more innovative models are still required to cater the seed needs of the farmer. The production environment has also improved because if you see that out of 137 pulse growing districts, 87 districts show 20 to 60% sulfur deficiency, 50% pulse growing districts show zinc deficiency, and Government of India through National Security Food Mission, worth of 11,000 crore, provided inputs to improve the production environment, and that has helped in realizing the productivity of most of the crops. Pulses have moved to non-traditional niches, and I think I would quote the 2 examples. That is, one is summer mung bean. The area is increased from 6 million hectare in 2010-11 to 1.3 million hectare now. The area under Ravi rice fallow pulses, particularly black gram cultivation in coastal Andhra Pradesh, mung bean in southern Karnataka and Kaveri Delta of Tamil Nadu. These are some of the niches that pulses has reached. And not only that, the large rice fallow area is in the eastern India, particularly from Guwahati to Tura in Meghalaya. 11 million hectare area is there, and satellite imagery shows that nearly 100 days moisture regime is there. So lentil and chickpea crops can be successfully grown in that area. So our programs are there, particularly the targeted rice fallow area program under the Department of Agriculture and Corporations, and those efforts are going on. We have to realize the potential of the rice fallow in the country. Nearly 1 million hectare area will be replaced by pulses, and particularly some of the intercropping systems, some of the replacements are there. And Maharashtra, I quote one example, the soybean intercropped with Vision P. It has become very remunerative, very popular among the farmers, and it has replaced many crops. And the pulses went into, and that is the important component. Pulses are an important component for the crop diversification. In the month of August, the Honorable Prime Minister called us and having a meeting on diversification of Indian agriculture. And the diversification campaign has been launched. And we are going to target 2 million hectare additional area under pulses and some in oilseed under diversification program. There were several government schemes, and that has been definite role in the government programs in pulses portfolio, not only the increase in MSP or National Food Security Missions. There are several programs which brought the changes in our pulse production. And there are new programs this year the government has launched, and pulses are integral part in each and every program of that. The Indian Pulse Research Program has a very big network. One National Institute, Indian Institute of Pulse Research, it's 4 regional stations, 4 ACRIPs, and more than 350 scientists are committed for nutritional and food security through pulses. With these few words, thank you all for your patience listening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And you have finished well in time, highlighting on various aspects. I will not go into those details now. So time is most precious for us. So what I would do is I would request Dr. San Mays, ICRISAT to make his points of view, present his viewpoints. Floor is yours, Dr. Mays.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
great. Thank you.
You can make your slide mode show if you can.
Presentation mode, please.
Where is that? I can't really see what you're seeing. No, I can't see what you're seeing.
Can you go to the slide mode show?
Yeah.
Slide show mode.
Yeah, you go on the slide on the right hand side, the bottom, and you see
Bottom,
this.
there is a screen shown there. You click
I
on
think that's what I did, but maybe not coming through.
It's okay, then I think we can.
It's okay.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much to the Honourable President and Secretary for the invitation to give a little bit of information, a little bit of a talk in this workshop. I'm relatively new at ICRISAT, so I'd have to start by saying if there are any mistakes, they're mine. And I'm sure Rajiv can probably help if we get stuck. What I thought would be useful is really just to talk a little bit about ICRISAT's involvement in terms of minor and major pulses in both India and also in Africa. and to say a little bit to some extent about how we've reorganized to try and push things forward. So, I mean, you'll all be familiar with ICRISAT, or most people will be, and our vision is very much a prosperous, food secure, resilient drylands in Asia and Africa. And particularly the mission is to reduce poverty, hunger, malnutrition, environmental degradation in the drylands. Essentially, our values are very much about collaboration and working together. In terms of where we are in Africa.
Excuse me, Sean, I assume you are moving your slides, but we are not able to see slides moving. We are having the first slide yet on that thing.
Okay. So that's you're not seeing any movement.
No, we are still on your title slide.
Please unshare and again share, because.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
And you click once on the slide after you share, then you automatically it will move on to the next.
Yeah, but that is not happening.
And some participant, they are also creating some nuisance by drawing on the slide. So we request not to do any of these things on the slides. They did in the Dr. Gupta's presentation also.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes, if you go there.
Yeah, maybe I'll just keep it in this mode, and that way it should at least go forward.
Yes, now we can see the next slide. Yes.
So, sorry. So in terms of our involvement in Africa, we will have two main regions, which are East and Southern Africa and Western Central Africa. And we have 5 stations within the eastern side and 3 stations within the western side. But we actually carry out multi-locational trials in about 13 countries in East Africa and quite a range of countries in West Africa as well. So it's quite a wide ecological and climate difference for the materials that we grow. And we have the 6 mandates, of which 3 are legumes, particularly, well, essentially legumes, particularly pigeon pea, chickpea, and groundnut. We have reorganized recently, and one of the reasons for doing this was really to try to integrate as far as we can in terms of trying to bring the disciplines together. So I look after accelerated crop improvement, but there are programs looking at enabling systems transformation, particularly socioeconomics, and also resilient farm systems and food systems, which are very much about taking a landscape view. We also have a cross-cutting set up so that we have representation in each of those major regions. And the idea really is very much to have everybody involved as far as we possibly can in design of programs. Some simple things that have come out of that sort of approach is very much looking to provide breeding targets, and those targets are focused around particular market segments or ecological zones, with the preferences coming from the farmers to make sure that the targets are always towards what the farmers themselves are looking for. I'll just talk a little bit about the resources we have and what we've done. So obviously one of the biggest resources we have is the gene bank. In the case of legumes, we have quite significant numbers of accessions available, freely available. And we also have quite a reasonable number of accessions in West Africa where they can also be accessed there. In terms of the numbers of samples distributed to date over the last 50 years or so, again, it's really quite large numbers, evenly split between global requests and things that have been used within the ICRISAT programs. Just genomics, pre-breeding and bioinformatics, obviously Rajiv did an enormous amount of work and produced a lot of results in terms of the genome side of things, in terms of understanding what's there at the basic level. And Some of that work has been continuing in terms of developing marker sets that we can use for breeding QC or for seed lot QCs to try and make sure of purity. And we are directly using markers that have been developed through those approaches within the breeding program. Recently, we just developed or completed some high quality additional genomes. And they, particularly in the case of groundnut, will feed into some of the breeding programs for particular diseases and problems which can't be addressed directly within the cultivated germplasm. The breeding program has obviously been quite successful in terms of developing varieties. We've developed 184 chickpea varieties, which have been spread to 26 countries, 123 pigeon pea in 19 countries, and 245 groundnut in about 39 countries. And that continues on a regular basis, particularly with shifting towards using hybrids in pigeon pea, and that is having quite a good effect in terms of actually increasing yields and taking advantage of the available good locations. As has been mentioned already, I mean, there are always significant issues in terms of disease, and crop protection is one of the key areas, both in terms of the gene bank, but also in terms of bringing in, having identified markers to some of these traits, some of these resistance traits, bringing those markers and genes into the breeding germplasm. And also there's a good crop entomology being done at the moment in terms of ICRISATs, working with collaborators, but in terms of rearing some of these pests and then looking at how you phenotype. And that's starting to produce some quite interesting results in terms of tolerance in some areas. The crop physiology does a number of things, but one of the things we're trying to use it for is to be able to predict regions and temporal times in terms of when to plant, what to plant, and coming from that to develop more specific breeding objectives that fit within the mapping process. But we're also doing quite a lot of phenotyping, both in terms of aerial drone phenotyping and multispectral cameras, but as well things like near infrared, where we can look at protein content, lipid content actually in seed. And one example in computer tomography is actually using computer tomography and AI to work out shelling percentages within groundnut, and that's actually used routinely now. In the longer term, there are going to be things that we can't deal with in terms of particular challenges, and that's where really genetic engineering and particularly gene editing will come in. And gene editing, having been accepted in India for type 1 and type 2 events, I think is going to be an important part of breeding. It will be integrated into main breeding programs, but those traits may be things that we really have to be working at a different level because we can't find the resistance elsewhere or in relatives. The final bit, which perhaps is much less important in terms of India, because there's a very good network in India, is seed production. In Africa, it's a lot more difficult in many ways. And we're looking at different models to try to generate breeders' seed and early generation seed. Really, it's a way to be able to supply these materials to the people who need them. I think harvesting chickpea has already been mentioned, certainly mechanized harvesting, which potentially has enormous benefits. And similar use of harvesting and basic technologies could also have quite a big impact in terms of how those, not only how those cultivars are bred, what they're bred for, but also how efficient farming could become, and taking away a lot of the drudgery that's there. What I will do is talk just briefly about a few examples. One thing to bear in mind, and you're obviously all aware of that, is that the crop breeding improvement is only one aspect. The other aspect is how do you work with the agricultural system, with the target environment, to try and have other interventions which help in terms of realizing yield and decreasing costs. And there are a whole range of these, and ICRISAT really works from the landscape level. And I'll give a few examples of some work there. So this is an example of a program that's been in ICRISAT, looking at pigeon pea and really looking at the potential to increase the efficiency and the yield of pigeon pea. And this is really an example where, yes, it's certainly true that new germplasm matters, but addressing many of the other issues is also really critical in terms of realizing those yields. And I think that aspect is going to be one of the key ones and very much goes hand in hand with crop improvement. And you can see that the yields have been increased by this integrated approach. Another example, which is an interesting one, Professor Gupta has already mentioned, using chickpea and rice fallows. And this is an example of a quite long-term program that ICRISAT's been involved in. And in this case, it's very much a case of understanding what's in the field and looking, in this case, at intervening for a micronutrient approach. And that has made fairly significant differences in terms of overall yields for a second crop. So these sorts of, these sorts of integrated approaches are really quite key. And to some extent, the breeding will start to move a little bit more towards specific environments and specific agroecologies. ICRISAT was involved in Myanmar chickpea work, and this was a fairly significant effort along with collaborators. And really, it made a significant difference in terms of production, and also, as you can see from the numbers, 96% of the chickpea area in 2017-18 was developed through ICRISAT-DAR partnerships, and obviously again with collaborators. I'll just give you a few examples of Africa in terms of our work there. And here's a figure which basically shows how many varieties have been released, in this case in East Africa. There's a reasonable production level in East Africa, and we're producing and breeding in that region, as well as testing in 13 countries to try and identify the best place for many of these pulses. Chickpea in Ethiopia, this is again a fairly long-term program. 10 improved varieties have been released between 2007 and 2018. And the adoption was high, partly through collaborative work with the national government and partners. And also overall, the average productivity essentially doubled over that period of time. So these sorts of comprehensive approaches with germplasm, but also obviously looking at local factors in terms of how to improve production, can have quite significant impacts. And just really to move towards an end, this is an example in pigeon pea, trends in Malawi. This is in Malawi, pigeon pea has really increased quite rapidly in terms of the amount of land that's being used for it. There is an increase in productivity per hectare. It's still starting from a pretty low level, so there's still a lot of improvement that can be made. But pigeon pea has essentially become quite an important crop in Malawi, and is picking up in other countries as well. So if I were to try to conclude, I mean, I think, as has been said, legumes are a critical part of future systems. And the nitrogen fixation is a key part of that, but obviously because of the high protein content, human and animal nutrition is extremely important as a component. For ICRISAT, really at the core of our approach is collaboration and multidisciplinary teams. There's some incredibly powerful technology being produced and really now generating enormous amounts of data. But clearly we have to translate that through into making impacts in the field. And that really needs a very, very integrated approach. The landscape level, and I think particularly the system level that we work at, I think is going to be really quite critical, because no two places are identical. And I think we can essentially develop approaches which are sort of templates that could be put into certain areas, but clearly they have to be adjusted. So in addition to advanced breeding for agro-ecosystems and market segments, we also focus on yield in a more holistic way. So agronomy management, water management in particular are one of the key things in terms of sustainability, in terms of being able to keep these yields up. And overall, I think one of the things, or potentially one of the problems with the Green Revolution was it was very much taken as a one size fits all. And that clearly isn't entirely true. So we need to work with common tools and approaches, but they have to be adapted and they have to be in context for it to be sustainable. And I think that will be one of the key challenges, because it means we're dealing with a lot more complexity. I think, as has been said, it's also not good enough to work just on the supply side, because in the end, it's going to be demand that will drive the need, the requirements for production, and that will also drive farmers growing these things, but also then it will increase the wealth of those farming communities if it's done in a way that makes sure that the farmers receive a good proportion of any increase. So thank you very much. I mean, we're extremely grateful to all funders, collaborators, and people we've worked with, particularly the local organizations in India, where essentially a large part of that work is done. And then we're trying to translate that in many ways to Africa, where the situation is perhaps certainly logistically more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. Excellent presentation on ICRISAT's various activities on legume research and development as well. The kind of revolution in pigeon pea, in chickpea, to which ICRISAT has contributed in India and globally, that you have highlighted. So I'll summarize at the end, but there are messages in your concluding remarks, and hopefully that would be also helpful in moving forward. So thank you very much, Dr. Miles. Now time is exactly, we are on the dot on time actually. So we'll move on to the next presentation by Dr. Ali Abusaba, Mr. Ali Abusaba. He himself says, don't put doctor. So thank you very much for joining, Ali, and it has been always a pleasure to interact with you and providing ICARDA's contributions with regard to major and minor pulses to global agriculture in that context, and also in the process ensuring food and nutrition security. We have been, greatly benefited and continued benefiting from ICARDA's efforts in India. So welcome, Dr. Ali, rather Mr. Ali, to this program, and the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohapatra. Is the sound coming on okay?
Yes.
Yeah, perfectly. All
excellent,
right.
excellent. Thank you so much. Dr. Mohapatra, thank you for the very generous and kind presentation. Equally, ICARDA appreciates the strong support that it has been receiving from India over the years, and of course also from your wisdom and guidance as a board member of ICARDA until recently. So really, I take the opportunity to appreciate that strongly. So my second check is to make sure that the slides are coming on okay.
Slides are okay, but can you please again go to slideshow mode?
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a challenge there, but let's see. Okay. Okay, works well now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. It's really, a great pleasure because there is a very important group of partners and key players within the context of, pulse research, which I think is a very essential piece of what we need to prepare, for the future. ICARDA, as you all know, provides innovative, climate smart and science-based solutions that improve rural family farming and livelihoods in the dry regions across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And within this context, I strongly believe that the pulses and legumes in general, will have a very important part to play, much more than it has done in the past, going into the future with the ever increasing challenges of the climate change. So our target environments, is mostly highlighted on the slide that you see. 2 billion people living in that space. Projections that drylands will make up more than 50% by the end of the century, and it accommodates almost 1/3 of the world population. So ICARDA, as part of the One CGIAR, has been working to with other partners to ensure that the priority areas for the CG are also reflected in the region, and that has different components and different participation in some of those 27 initiatives, of which 6, on top of that, there are also 6 regional initiatives. There is the group, 6 of them about genetic innovations in the portfolio in a variety of areas. You have the system transformation portfolio, about 12 initiatives, and you have resilient agri-food systems in 9 of them. And those 27 are supplemented by the regional initiatives. Some of them have a very regional focus. They are very complementary to the independent standalone initiatives, and they draw and leverage opportunities to bring in technologies for scaling in those different areas. The greatest challenge that we're trying to address here is that by the year 2050, we are expecting our population to grow by almost 37%, reaching 9.2 billion people. And food production must really increase by 27%, by 60, more than 60%. So this is happening at the time where the climate change is becoming more pronounced, and the resource use efficiency needs greater attention, because with the negative impact of climate change, we are expecting some of the crop yields to fall by as high as 25%. So, what this, makes is really an additional challenge on everyone, that to be able to mobilize and leverage the science and innovations and the research that we do in ways that can really leverage on the technology and use it to produce more food, but with less resource use. So what I would like to emphasize here is the role of the hello? Hello?
Yes.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, please.
My screen went black.
Oh, but we are able to see.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, it's moving.
So let me continue that. So the issue really is looking at a model that is more sustainable, for the production systems, looking at the whole, process from the crop selection, the variety suitability, looking at the agronomy and the farming practices, and then also at the post-harvest. So the whole value chain with a view to making sure that the production systems are economically viable, but also, ecologically sustainable. That is less land, more crop per crop, higher input per unit, less consumption of energy, and hopefully less carbon emissions. So when we look at the legumes across the globe, we have a significant part of this 3,500 varieties. Almost 85 of them come and have been released by ICARDA and partners over the past 10 years. My apology, my screen is freezing again. So, and here the approach has been to try to look at higher productivity, higher adaptability, but also looking at the whole issue of nutrition so that we're able to leverage this for better, not just more food secure world, but also better and more nourished smallholder farmers across the world. So if I take a quick look at India in particular, and of course, you're all very familiar with this work, so I'll just pass on very quickly. Some of the examples, enhancing food and nutritional security and improve livelihoods through intensification of rice fallow systems using, existing moistures. This is really a great opportunity for the CGIAR at large because we are leveraging almost 5 million hectares of rice plantations. And, in those instances where the rice goes fallow, then you're able to introduce, for example, early maturing lentil varieties that brings in significant additional production, a very strong addition to the nutritional consumption of the local population and overall improving health. So the whole question around incentivization of non-paddy crops in RR seed mini kit program in Odisha. More recently, 2020 and 2021, the variety technology and seed systems development for pulses in Odisha, 2016, 2019, enhancing pulses production for food and nutritional security and improved livelihoods, and the list goes on. So what we are trying to really take is to take up both in India and across the world is to take and leverage these innovations and, take them across different scales and to different regions, and being able to take the technologies that have been developed in India or developed outside India and exchange in a two-way process. This is actually resulting significant uptake of innovative, technologies that have been available for a long time, but with limited uptake. This is helping countries like Morocco, Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, to actually take full advantage of the innovations that have been produced and take them to scale. There is increased interest in, pulses and legumes in general, both as feed and fodder, and in many parts of the dryland crops and in countries where they have traditionally been producing high levels, and for a variety of reasons, their production has been going down over the past years. So within this context, more examples, is the FPO based seed hubs under the Odisha project, emphasis on participatory varietal evaluations. We have, seed multiplications. We have, a large number of certified seeds produced, and significant number of, capacity development and training programs. Capacity development is actually a very essential part of the work we do in partnership with many of the participants in the conference, and a very large number across India. India is privileged to have a very strong national system with a large scale of research networks and partners that together with the CGIAR are able to do significant and marvelous work on the ground that is actually not available anywhere else in the world, at least in terms of the scale and in terms of the contribution of our national partners that are able to bring this to the CGIAR. So it's a very privileged partnership that we are really appreciating very much. Of course, Within this context, it's important to emphasize the role of the ICARDA Gene Bank, 155,000 accessions, of which 65,000 are of different, legumes varieties, and of course, wild relatives. The ICARDA Gene Bank teams have developed this FIGS, which is the focused identification of genetic species, which is allowing us to be a lot more effective and efficient in the way we select and identify those, genetic resources that can feed into the, breeding programs. I think Dr. Sanjeev had mentioned the work in India on the mechanically harvestable pulses. I think also our colleague from ICRISAT. This is gaining enormous interest across the world, not just in India. And the fact is the labor cost constitutes a very important challenge in actually expanding and scaling, pulses in lineage. So with the focus on this work and ICARDA, Dr. Shiv Agrawal, and before him, others, they have been working closely with the national system to develop further these mechanically harvestable lentil varieties with taller stems. Introduction of mechanization could help a country like Morocco, for example, that is aiming to take almost 1 million hectares of conservation agriculture. Introduction of legumes within that system can be transformational. Egypt in the new lands, they're learning from India's experience, and they're trying to, together with our legumes research teams, move technologies across the globe. And of course, lessons learned from this are brought back into India, and the learning process continues from there. I mentioned earlier the introduction of lentil, short lentil varieties in rice fallows and this is allowing us to intensify the production system, and no additional pressure on the water because it's moisture, residual moisture in the land, no additional clearance of land because it's a land that goes fallow in between two rice crops. And of course, this requires interventions along the whole value chain, looking at the seed production, the crop management, the value chains, and the consumption, and of course, the preference of the consumers. This slide basically shows how the super early maturing lentil varieties are introduced between these two rice systems, Amman rice, the Boro rice, during the period from November until the end of January, which comes in extremely handy and is in making not just additional food, but also better nutrition. Intercropping pulses, of course, it allows us to diversify the production systems, and this makes the system overall a lot more profitable from a farmer perspective. With cereal systems, you can produce up to 38% more crops, almost 33 more income at a farmer level, and using less land by almost 23%. So it's really win-win both for the environment, for the farmers, and for the economy. Now, what is important here is to look at how what would be the impact at scale through the introduction of extra early biofortified lentil crops for South Asia. You look at it from the experience in Bangladesh, in India, and in Nepal, and the whole technology has been significant in making benefits across these environments. But it's also important to recognize there are significant opportunities for leveraging of digitalization, remote sensing, and the whole package of the agronomy that is needed for the management of the crop. So it is clear, and I'm here emphasizing the messaging that we need to take to the World Food Prize. The pulses have significant opportunities to offer within the context of ever increasing climate change negative impacts, both in the area of food and feed. They can become a very important player in the future markets, up from the current levels of 17.4 billion, possibly up to 21.6 billion by 2030. And you can imagine, you can do the math and expect by the year 2050, what will be the impact. I can confirm to you that as far as ICARDA and the CG is concerned, we are making concerted effort to make sure that pulses have continued attention and opportunities for scaling across the region. So, in short and in summary, the integration of pulses is really in cereal-based cropping system. It increases productivity, it enhances returns, it improves the environment, it reduces the carbon emissions, it improves the resilience of livelihood at farmer levels and offers significant opportunities for social inclusion. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of our thoughts with you. I am personally committed to work with all of you, ICARDA, on behalf of ICARDA, our research teams, and also on behalf of the CGIAR, because I also represent, the CG group of centers that works in Siwana, and we will continue to work strongly with our partners in India to make sure that there is a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra, and thank you, Dr. Sanjeev and Rajiv, and many others present on this call for the opportunity to address this August group. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. Excellent presentation. A big hand to you. And always you have been forthcoming and standing by the needs of India on many occasions. A very good friend and otherwise excellent administrator as you have been. And again, highlighted several points and integrating pulses in our farming and cropping systems, as you said at the end, for taking full advantage of the benefits that pulses offer as a group of crops. That's the message that you have given. So I'll come back to the other points that you have made. So profuse thanks for joining and making your points so eloquently. And now we will move ahead. Our last presentation is by Dr. Ram Nair from Worldways. Dr. Nair, floor is yours. And please unshare, Ali, please unshare your slides. And okay, so now Dr. Ram, please.
Can you see the full screen?
Yes, we can see it very well, Dr. Nair.
Okay. Dr. Mohapatra, Dr. Bansal, Dr. Rajiv, my co-speakers, Dr. Sanjeev Gupta, Dr. Shane Mays, Mr. Ali Abu Saba, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to present on behalf of WorldVeg on what we have done on the major and minor pulses. This is the outline of my presentation. We'll look at the global strategy, which we prepared recently on Vigna, then the International Mung Bean Improvement Network, then scaling of varieties in both Asia and Africa is on mung bean. Then again, the value-added project on mung bean in Myanmar, an African Union Mung for Iron project, and piloting of varieties in Central Asia in Tajikistan, the USAID project, then a Department of Biotechnology, Government of India project on minor pulses, and a World Bank project in Assam, the eastern states in India, and the way forward. So the recently, the Crop Diversity Trust asked WorldVeg to lead this initiative on preparing a global strategy for the conservation and use of Vigna species. In the past, there was only one strategy document, and that was specifically on cowpea. So this was to cover all the species in Vigna, and I thank all the gene bank collaborators who have been there and worked with us and developing these strategy. So the key points include developing an international platform to support small gene banks, to promote regeneration and safety duplication of Vigna collections, then germplasm characterization, especially to avoid duplicate holdings, then very important to preserve endangered wild species and making sure that there is successful pre-breeding and use of crop species, particularly to the gene pools which have been neglected. And then the Fifth point is on strengthening in situ conservation of Vigna genetic resources, particularly the crop wild relatives, and connect this to the ex situ conservation activities. So again, thanks very much to all the gene bank curators who did a great job. And this is our the gene bank in Taiwan, which holds more than 10,000 Vigna species. The International Mung Bean Improvement Network is my next slide. And so for those of you know that mung bean is a mandate crop of world veg, and we have been working with mung bean for a while. And it was in 2016 we were successful in developing a network of mung bean researchers, and it's called as the International Mung Bean Improvement Network, thanks to the funding by the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research. And now we are into the second phase of the network, and we have got support from the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. We have partners from Kenya, CalRO, from India, the ICR Indian Institute of Pulse Research, from Bangladesh, Bari Agriculture Research Institute, from Myanmar, the Department of Agriculture Research, from Indonesia, the Institute of Legume and Tuber Crops Institute. From Australia, we have two partners from the Department of Agriculture and Food and the University of Queensland. As part of the network, we have developed core and mini core collections. In World Veg, we have over 8,000 accessions of mung bean, from which by phenotypic characterization, we developed a core collection of 1,490 accessions. And then by genotyping using SSR markers, we developed a mini core of 300 accessions, which have been used for genotyping as well as phenotyping studies. Here is an example wherein one of the PhD students based in Taiwan did a work on the GWAS on seed coat luster. And the network was fortunate to get a grant from Illumina, the Agriculture Greater Good program, and which is allowing us to resequence the whole genome of the mini core collection, plus the important breeding materials. This is our Roland Schaffleitner, the molecular breeder based in our headquarters, and Dr. Lee from the National Taiwan University, who are very much in this helping the network to progress further. The mini core collection has been distributed to partners both in Asia and Africa. You can see that here, 7 countries in Africa have evaluated. So we have got now excellent data sets from all these countries highlighted here on the evaluation of these 300 accessions. Excellent data. And we have also been looking and using the high throughput phenotyping techniques. This is the PhenoSpecs facility in Taiwan. And this is the Lemna Tech facility, which we have collaborated with Jagdish Rane Group in the Indian, the National Abiotic Stress Management Center in Barmati. And excellent growth rates have been recorded on mung bean. The mung bean mini core has given us pleasant surprises. We have got, the yellow mosaic disease. This is the shot taken from Myanmar. You can see that there is these yellow spots, patches, or plots represent the susceptible ones, and you can see some of the lines or accessions have got resistant. This was a big new information because the resistant varieties developed were through mutagenesis, and this is now a very important source of resistance to mung bean yellow mosaic disease, which is the most important disease, major constraint, particularly in Asia. And there is this dry root rot resistance. Again, we have got resistant lines, accessions in this mini core, which is an emerging disease, especially when mung bean is grown as part of rice farming system. So starting to emerge in parts of Odisha in India and also in Myanmar. Sticking with the fungal diseases, anthracnose is a problem. And again, we have got a resistant line accession from the mini core. One of the bacterial diseases, halo blight, which is a very, can be very, very damaging. You can see all the lines or accessions have been decimated. This is a major problem in Australia. Again, the mini core, one of the accession showing resistance. Again, great relief to our colleagues in Australia. Then cowpea aphid is a chance infestation when we were evaluating the mini-core. Again, we have one accession, a couple of accessions showing good level of resistance. Abiotic resistance also very important, and preliminary experiments we found a couple of accessions showing tolerance to salt. We have also been using marker-assisted selection. This is a good example where we have brookits are a major storage pest, and we have earlier identified brookit-resistant accessions which have been introgressed into improved lines. And now we have developed markers, and we are currently deploying them into our breeding program. So these are the caps markers were converted into SNPs, and they have been now, we are doing the validation with our breeding materials. In 2020, we had a meeting of our stakeholders, and then these product profiles were developed. So each partner, for example, you can see each partner has got these product profiles. So must have traits and good to have traits. So just to show as an example, in Kenya, you can see that I have put this mark MIMD resistance, but I have put BCMV and CMV. Because when we introduced the mini-core and all the breeding lines into Africa, we were expecting mung bean yellow mosaic disease to be the major problem. But to our surprise, the bigoma virus was not an issue, but bean common mosaic virus and the cucumber mosaic virus were the major threats. So again, highlighting the importance of making sure what sort of biotic and abiotic stresses are there in each country or the region where you introduce crops. I'm happy to say that as part of the network, some lines have been shortlisted for potential release. In India, here you can see 2 lines, in Bangladesh, 3 lines, and Myanmar, even some of the advanced breeding lines from World Wedge, as well as some accessions from the mini-core have been identified for potential release. And in Kenya, these 2 lines have high iron content also in early flowering. I'd like to invite your attention to this Mung Central, which is a newsletter we have developed by the International Mung Bean Improvement Network. So far, we have released 9 editions, and this is available on our World Wedge website as well as in the ACR website. So you get recipes in each edition. Well, varieties development is great, but then scaling up of varieties. Here, this is from the UK aid, now called FCDO. We have been scaling varieties and good agriculture practices, both in Asia and Africa. In Tajikistan, 2 varieties, Mawarid and Watara, were released. And in Kenya, Karimbo, Nidujo, Tosha, and Biashara, these varieties were released. These varieties, when I visited Kenya in 2011, they were growing varieties which were 90 days duration. And these varieties are early maturing, 60 days duration, big seed size, made a big difference. And Karmi Rial, the partner from Calro, she did an excellent job in having participatory evaluation when the testing of varieties were done at earlier stages. Now, excellent adoption is happening. And I'm also happy to say that 2 varieties were identified by the Tanzanian Agricultural Research Institute, Tari Mung 1, Tari Mung 2, released this year. And hopefully the seed production will also go in parallel. This project, Actium, accelerating the competitiveness and inclusiveness of the mung bean value chain in Myanmar, is a classic project in which all the stakeholders are there. You have got the farmers, you've got the researchers, you have got the stakeholders. Important here in this case is we have got Ever Special, which is Europe's largest sprouting company. And we have like in the past, this company has been importing from both China and Myanmar, but the quality of the material was in question. So this project funded by Danida has been a very good one to bring about good agriculture practices. And I'm happy to say that the advanced breeding lines shared by World Wedge, AVMUs 1688 and 1690, been promising and most preferred by farmers. Very important, this particular line 1688 have been tested and found to be an excellent sprouting quality one. So we will have at least 2 varieties, one for the sprouting market and one for the grain market. And we are encouraging, because Myanmar is an excellent country which exports lots of mung bean, but we are encouraging the growers as well as consumers in Myanmar to consume mung bean because of its nutritive value. This is another project on mung bean called Mung for Iron, funded by the African Union. Here it is led by NARO in Uganda. We have partners Calro as well as TARI in Tanzania. The World Wedge identified lines of mung bean with capacity to have higher uptake of iron when the soil available iron is more. And these lines were crossed into improved lines, and we have shared these lines developed with partners. And here you can see the dramatic increase in the high iron content in these of these lines in the different countries. Moving on to India, this is a project, the genetic enhancement of minor pulses is a project funded by the Government of India Department of Biotechnology, led by the Institute of Life Sciences Bhubaneswar in Odisha, which is eastern state in India. And in this project, there are different legumes. And the component which we were involved is led by the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. And we have been working on 2 crops, urd bean, Vigna mungo, and the whole collection, over 2,000 accessions of urd bean in the NPPGR. We evaluated for 2 years. Excellent information. You can see the tremendous variation you can see in terms of leaf shape, the growth habit, the pod color. And we had a chance in incidence of anthracnose resistance, anthracnose disease. And you can see that 2 accessions are highly resistant and 71 resistant. And these have been holding on after further testing. So very excellent outcome from a breeding point. And the other crop which we have been working as part of this project is horse gram, Acrotyloma uniflorum. Again, this one we were given the task of evaluating the core collection of developed from this project at 300 accessions along with checks. And again, enormous variation. And we have shared DNA samples and phenotypic data, and a lot of work is happening, and more publications and good varieties will come out of this program, I'm sure. We have also been working in Central Asia. This is the example in the USAID project. This is one of the mung bean varieties which were tested well in collaboration with Punjab University, Chandigarh, under controlled conditions, showing good level of heat tolerance. And this is performing well, very well in Tajikistan at the temperatures going up to 45 degrees Celsius, but it is under irrigated conditions. So, but again, very hot, but performing well. They are very happy. The Tajik Academy of Agriculture Sciences also identified an urd bean line, which is also performing well and which is submitted for potential release. And when we develop varieties, we look for projects like the World Bank APART project in Assam, where we can use these mature technologies. And there, the project wanted urd bean lines. So we have shared the yellow mosaic disease, bruchid resistant urd bean lines, and shared with the national partner in that project, the Assam Agriculture University. They are doing well. You can see the pods are at the top of the plant. Unlike, usually the pods in black urd bean is, hidden in the canopy. So we have got some good plants which are performing very well. Now, a couple of last few slides on the way forward. I think conservation of wild relative species and very important utilization in pre-breeding and breeding programs are very vital. Then developing markers, high density markers, and pangenomics and Rajiv Vashni, who is in the panel, has been working a great deal on this. And my previous speakers emphasized the importance of improving productivity. Just in case of mung bean, the global productivity is only 700 kilograms per hectare. But in Australia, you get 2.5 tons per hectare. See the yield gap, even in a crop like mung bean. So right varieties, very important to have good agriculture practices. Good agriculture practices, 60 days variety. If you do good agriculture practices, you get 2 tons easily. And very important to make sure the varieties fit into the cropping system, whether it is a monocropping system, whether it is following in between rice and wheat, or if it is following the maize, or intercropping with maize or sorghum or with another legume. Very important to have discussions with the communities and make sure these are implemented on a system basis. Another important point which I'd like to point out is the development of regional pods. So these are regional pods I would like to call, as these legume fruits are called as pods. Obviously, that is why I would like to call them regional pods, because we need regional or local champions to promote minor pulses, or else the minor pulses will remain minor forever. So conservation of efforts at regional level, raising awareness, even through inclusion of seeds in home garden seed kits. We could have these seed kits of these minor pulses in home garden seed kits, which will help to create awareness, or even in school gardens, and then get interested. And then very important that the seed production has been mentioned by previous speakers. And it's not that easy that it's private sector coming on board, but you could have the community business model, which is working well in some countries. In Kenya, just we had some information from our collaborator that about 80 to 90% of the mung bean seed is through the informal seed system. So we cannot ignore that. So how can we strengthen the informal seed sector? And very important. So last month I was in Benin. We have World Veggies has got an alliance with the private sector in Africa called the African.
Okay, can you please wind up?
Yes, African Vegetable Breeding Consortium, in which private sector partners are there, and there is great interest even crop like mung bean. So this is my last slide. So we need to develop value-added products, good recipes, highlighting the nutritional and nutraceutical values. So these are the wide range of products developed even in crop like mung bean, and acknowledging the donors and the partners. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Ram, for another important presentation, highlighting partnership, highlighting world-based work in various countries, including India, and contributing to the development of pulses, germplasm use, leading to bridging yield gaps, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. It's now the session is open for discussion. This is the general discussion session. All participants are welcome. So anyone wishes to express their views and provide comments, or even query, whatever you would like to raise. So most welcome.
Yeah, Dr. Acharya from this side, Dr. Mahapatra.
Yeah, please, Dr. Acharya, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. All the presentations have been very good. I appreciate, and especially the one from ICARDA. Where even the management issues were discussed, and now Dr. Nair. See how the mitigating of iron deficiency showed the dramatized increase in production and productivity. The yield levels, they see the 2.5 tons in Australia and 700 kg in Africa. In India, how long we will continue to say that the pulses are grown under infant conditions? See the condition these days in the country, the Uttar Pradesh, the Bihar, the Rajasthan. So much of water is there, but there is no water when we need it. So my point is that why can't we concentrate on these issues also? Then the second point is that the soils are to be enriched. Our soils are deficient. More than 40% of the soils are deficient in zinc. More than 33% of the soils are deficient in iron. And not only the micronutrients, but also of the major nutrients. The pulses require the phosphorus, sulfur, and all those. The organics, there is a shortage of organics. If we enrich the soils, provide, good fresh vegetables to the children, good milk, the eggs, fish, and other things, rather than, concentrate on the fortification of the pulses.
Yeah. So
this is what I had been discussing. So this is the farming system based approach. The livestock. If soil is rich, you will have the better grasses. You will have the better quality of the cereals and the pulses. So thank you very much.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Masood Ali, can I make?
Yeah, please.
Sir, the kind of achievements that we made in pulse production, productivity, and area expansion, it is indeed remarkable, as Dr. Gupta has very nicely presented. And I believe in the coming 5 years, we should be a pulse surplus nation. But if we look to the other aspect, that is regional aspects. When we see north, central, south, and east, we find, okay, central and south, excellent. North comes number 2, but once we look to the East India, the situation is still bleak. In fact, the production and productivity of pulses in this region is quite low, and that really requires focus. Now, there are 2 minor pulses, since of course it was for major and minor pulses. In fact, urad bean and mung bean we don't take as a minor pulses, right? The other minor pulses, what I say, that is grass pea and rice bean. Actually, rice bean under our condition national system, it comes under underutilized network project. I should say the underexploited, it's not underutilized, underexploited network project. And Vigna ambulata, that is rice bean, has a great potential. It has a higher productivity, a very high biomass, could be also used as a fodder and also for green manuring. But the problem is of the quality aspects. I think there is a need to focus on the quality aspects of Vigna ambulata and also its duration. I think if we are able to address these 2 aspects, it could be one of the potential crop in the Eastern India. Grass peas, of course, ICARDA is also working on this. Our national program has also now focused on the this crop. And we have varieties now which have got very low ODAC content, and productivity improvement is going on. So I think these 2 minor pulses, they need more focus. And as Dr. Acharya mentioned, in fact, overall, we can enhance the productivity still a lot by practicing precision agriculture, which will include nutrients, moisture, and other aspects also. So I think these are the things which will certainly lead to a very high productivity. I think we should be able, as I said, we should be able to be a pulse surplus nation in coming 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very valuable comments. Dr. Venkateswarlu.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, what we see in our country is that, in the historically, pulses have been very major component of the intercropping systems, But of late, sir, we see due to harvesting problem and increasing mechanization of the crops, we see that intercropping is unfortunately on the decline. So I think this is something which we need to see. This is one point. And second point is many of the speakers, they mentioned about the ongoing breeding efforts, but none of them mentioned about the scope for any breakthrough technologies like genome editing and all. If at all, is there any scope, at least in future? These are the 2 points I thought I must have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next.
Anybody else?
Dr. Deshmukh.
Dr. Deshmukh?
Thank you, sir. Sir, as Dr. Ali mentioned, Central India has definitely done better in chickpea during last 1 decade or so. Even pigeon pea is okay. But what I see that the area and the productivity of mung bean and urad bean in Maharashtra particularly has decreased, say, tremendously. Because maybe because of the change in climate, the present day varieties do well when they are planted in June itself. If the sowing is delayed to July, then there is a reduction, tremendous reduction in yield. Also, these crops are caught in rains nowadays. What I feel that as Dr. Nair has shown some good lines, probably there is a scope to try some more lines, improved lines with different sowing dates in a state like Maharashtra in Kharif. There is little scope for introduction of these crops in summer season in a state like Maharashtra because the irrigation is a problem in during summer months. But in Kharif, these crops grow very well and also play a very important role in cropping system, particularly in rotation with Rabi sorghum. When these crops are grown in Kharif, they are harvested in 2 months and then in September, Rabi jawar is sown. But nowadays we are lacking in that particular cropping pattern and there is shift, maybe the area, particularly under these 2 crops is getting reduced day by day. So that is what I would like to suggest, that we need some efforts to introduce some better lines or develop maybe better lines which can be planted late and having resistance to yellow hen mosaic and powdery mildew. Because powdery mildew is again a very important problem in a state like Maharashtra. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Last one, last intervention.
Sir, can I ask a question? Sir,
Yeah.
myself, CS Mohanty.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, thank you very much for such a nice and informative. Yes, sir, hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So apart from these major legumes, so there are some legumes which are restricted to some of the pockets, some specific pockets of Indian and African subcontinent, like for example, different bean categories. So is there any initiative like the mainstreaming of those in a broader perspective, as well as apart from this nutritional fortification? So there are many anti-nutrients also, those which are infested with all these legumes. So as per rightly told by my earlier speaker, so there are a lot of genomic technology, like for example, genome editing tools are there. So can we go for this anti-nutrient by editing some of the lines? So this initiative.
Okay. Ellie, you would like to respond?
No, actually, I would like to maybe just make one last comment. If we have a window through the World Food Prize, I think we should send a strong message about the potential future role of pulses to transform the food systems. And I think it's a message about the increased need for increased investment in research to be able to actually achieve that and promote learning across the globe. And I think India has enormous knowledge to offer in that space. So I just want to suggest we craft a message along this line and make it among our, among our messages to the world. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. See.
Yes, I have only one thing that, somebody says that genetic, genomic editing. I think we have done good job as far as GRASP is concerned, where we wanted to silence this pathway of, production, and that has been done in association with Queensland University under this, GIC project, with GIC partners. So I think, we have done good job, and then we have some of the lines, but then before that, we want to test it across the lab and then locations. Only then we will claim this having zero audit lines through genome editing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Could I
Dr.
make a
Madhav,
comment,
you have
please?
one line, if you can say at the end.
Could I make a comment, please?
Yeah, just quickly one line because we don't have time. One line.
I was just wondering whether we have got any thought with respect to the productions in our own country, where we are also concerned with the quality of the straw. When we are talking of the product quality, the quality of the straw becomes very important to us, because these are the crops which are supplementing for our transforming agriculture with respect to the livestock.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need to have some thought also being given to the quality of the straw which is being produced.
Okay. Okay. Well said. Thank you very much. So, due to paucity of time, so I'm sorry that I will not be able to take it further with regard to discussion. So please provide your comments in writing. So we would be extremely happy to take note of those and include those in our minutes of final proceedings that we prepare, and also include that in the form of recommendations. So to summarize very briefly, I have 4 or 5 minutes. Very briefly, what was evident from the presentation was the kind of development that has taken place during particularly past 10 years in production and consumption of pulses. That was very, very significant. And Dr. Gupta highlighted this in the context of India, how we have increased our production as well as consumption. So that's very, very important. Obviously, variety development and all that has contributed, but also the policies of governments that has made significant impacts. The other point, which is very, very important, and it was quite evident, is the international centers, the CGIAR institution, ICARDA, ICRISAT, WorldWays, and they have also contributed very, very significantly in improving pulses, taking pulses to the field, in making impacts in the process, not only in India, but also globally. Examples were cited, whether it is in Africa, Central Asia, in South Asia, for instance, in Bangladesh, Myanmar, several examples were cited. So contributions of these centers, all the ICRISAT, ICARDA, and WorldWays have been quite significant. So that was very evident. And I'm sure this kind of I don't know who is making this noise, but mute them. So this is very important. But what was actually highlighted is the partnership. So partnership made the difference. Partnership of CG centers, international centers, with the national government and national organizations, was very crucial, and that helped in promoting pulses in a big way. Germplasm played a very key role, and that was quite evident. Mention was made that we must conserve wild relatives and make use of these germplasm more and more, keeping in mind demand to delivery. What was highlighted by Ali, that demand to delivery is very, very important. And keeping in mind the product profile, the market requirements, the trade highlight was made with regard to mung bean sprout trade, for instance, or for that matter, other trades which were highlighted. So the market, trades need to be really kept in mind. Germplasm need to be utilized more and more. The gene banks are full of this germplasm. Core collections have been made, many cores have been made, and while conserving them is one side, it's a great work, but utilizing them is another challenge and need to really utilize to have climate resilience, have more of yield and breaking yield ceiling and so on and so forth. Many things were highlighted, and biofortification was also highlighted in addition to mechanical harvesting. Plant type is very, very important, and breeding for that is equally important, and using new tools and techniques which were highlighted at the end, and Dr. Gupta has also highlighted, and we need to really use those in addition to genomics, which has been actually done elaborately. Dr. Rajiv has really made significant contributions in this area. They were all orphan crops, neglected crops. Now they are so rich with the kind of genomic resources and information. And we need to really congratulate Rajiv on this occasion to making this big difference. And the whole world is now, starting to work on those. And some of the varieties in chickpea which have been released here is very, very important. So gene editing, which was also mentioned, need to be taken advantage of. India has actually put right kind of guidelines and SOPs in place. And I believe that we should be able to take full advantage of gene editing to modify plant types, plant architecture, and also bring in other desirable traits in relation to demand. What is there in the market? What is desirable in the market, and then breed accordingly. So that's what was highlighted. And similarly, what was also mentioned that we have to integrate pulses elaborately in the cropping system and farming system, and along with the precision agriculture and appropriate good agricultural practices, whether it is intercropping, whether it is solo cropping, or otherwise. So we have to increase productivity and bridge yield gaps which is existing, and enhance farmers' income by way of integrating them in our intercropping systems. And that was there in the past, and recently we have actually forgotten it. That is very significantly reduced. And anti-nutritional factor reduction is very, very important, and gene editing can play a very significant role. And similarly, soil properties were talked about, and I believe we should be able to address those in the management and as a part of precision agriculture and part of in the system mode of operation. Minor pulses were highlighted. I think two of the points which Dr. Masood Ali made, grass pea as well as other minor crops, including rice bean, for instance, which he highlighted. So tremendous potential. They have specific drawbacks, and you should be able to really address those using new technologies and bring in, bring those to the large-scale cropping, and then in the process take full advantage of that. Certainly, rice fallow is one area which is highlighted, and making use of that area which is available to us. Say in India, which was highlighted, is that either lentil or chickpea, which can be grown. I believe it has to be demand-based. In India, for instance, pigeon pea and lentil are imported. They are in more demand. I believe in rice fallows, they are to be promoted, not chickpea. And that's the message we receive from the presentation. And as I said, that awareness creation is very, very important. And I believe we should be able to really do that. There is, a great potential of pulses, as Ali highlighted at the end, and it requires to be highlighted, emphasized again and again through World Food Prize Foundation. We should globally, highlight and focus more on pulse cultivation as well as consumption. And very importantly, messaging with regard to enhanced funding for pulses research, pulses development, for scaling pulses, scaling up their production and consumption. That's very, very important, along with awareness creation. And I believe that, with today's program, with all your viewpoints which are presented, and only few points I have taken in the form of summary, and the time is off, and I should stop here and profusely thank all the speakers and also all those who participated in discussion and attended this meeting. Thanks to Rajiv very specifically for initiating this. Of course, formal vote of thanks would be by Dr. Bansal. So from my side, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Dr. Bansal, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And well, we are at the end of this particular virtual workshop. And I'm very happy that the two organizations, the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences and the World Food Prize Foundation together, first time, organized this virtual workshop around pulses, involved in food security, nutritional security, as well as sustainable development, both major and minor pulses. So at the outset, I, in fact, behalf of the Academy, congratulate both these organizations and thank them profusely, for coming forward and playing a big role in organizing this virtual workshop. And when I talk of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, I must thank, our Honorable President, Dr. Taloshan Mahapatra, who himself is a world-renowned scientist in the area of genomics, and who has been earlier, as you all know, the Director General of the Indian Council of Agricultural Research and the former Secretary to Government of India of Department of Agriculture Research and Education. And he always takes large amount of interest in guiding us through in organizing such virtual workshops. And it took only a few seconds, minutes for him to approve, such a program organized in collaboration with the World Food Prize, Foundation. And secondly, I'm very thankful too, on behalf of the Academy, to Professor Rajiv Varshney, who has been already, in fact, talked about by almost all the speakers, including our Honorable President. His contribution is so very well recognized in the area of pulses globally, including release of varieties, not only in India, also for African regions. And I'm very thankful to you, Rajiv, for making this happen in a very short time. Actually, within a few days of time, we were able to chalk out the whole program with the support of Ms. Netali from the World Food Prize Foundation. I'm thankful to you both, and of course to Rajiv Varshney first, who is our foreign secretary, from the Murdoch University, Australia. And then I thank in our Academy, we have our other guidance coming from people like Vice President, we have Secretary Mr. Dr. Joshi, we have our own Executive Council members, the Secretariat, Dr. Saxena, and all the team. And I'm very thankful to, in fact, in our own team here at the Academy, to Mr. Chitesh, Jaising and Mr. Krishna. But more importantly, a special thanks to all the learned speakers, the distinguished speakers, who in fact gave us an opportunity that these different organizations like ICAR, ICRISET, ICARDA, or the World Wedge came together, to discuss these various avenues we have forward, looking avenues, for the pulses, production and improvement at the global level. And as has been also pointed out, by our Honorable President, that I think at the end we must try to make an action plan and develop certain set of recommendations. And I would request Dr. Rajiv Varshney, if could come forward, if together can compile, all these, resources which have been presented today, and we can even submit as a joint document, both from the National Academy as well as from the World Food Prize Foundation, to these organizations or to the global agriculture as a whole. And these four organizations, of course, firstly, the ICAR, I'm very thankful also to Dr. Himanshu Pathak, who had actually, given his consent, but as you know, this is such an important position that he could not find time. He is busy elsewhere in another meeting, in regional committee meeting, but he sent his best wishes to all of us, and we profusely, on behalf of the Academy, thank Dr. Himanshu Pathak, the current Director General, ICAR, and the Secretary there to Government of India. And of course, I'm thankful to all the Directors General of all other, international institutions like ICRISET, particularly the speaker, Dr. Sohan Mays, and also the Director General from ICARDA, and also the World Wedge. And to continue with the speakers, Dr. Sanjeev Gupta from ICAR, I'm very thankful to him, followed by Mr. Ali who made a wonderful presentation from ICARDA. I was associated with some of these programs when I was in NBPGR, particularly, the kind of interspecific hybridization we did, the pre-weeding work in lentil and chickpea. And I'm very thankful to ICARDA in general, particularly to Mr. Ale, who made this wonderful presentation today in this program. And also, I'm thankful to Mr. Dr. Ram Nair, who again talked about on various pulses and gave good emphasis on, how we can together work in this area, from the world wedge. And I think it's time that probably ICAR or National Academy actually can play a big role in bringing all these national international institutions together to develop a kind of a roadmap, or recommendations to move forward. And I'm thankful, of course, again, to all the participants, who made it in a big number. I think it was over 250, participants, though the registrations went up to, as I mentioned in the beginning, informally 900, but I think the others must be also watching the program from the World Food Program Foundation, platform. But nevertheless, I think more than 250 participants were there. I'm thankful to all of them, and thankful to all those who raised questions and queries and gave their comments to discussants. I'm very thankful to them as well. They made certainly very important points, and I think that will add value further into the whole program, which we were able to organize here at the National Academy. With this, I once again actually thank all of you and look forward to a set of recommendations. And as has been advised by our Honorable President of the Academy, we will, I'm sure, come up soon with some kind of recommendations, and Dr. Rajiv Washington and we together will work on it, and with input from all the speakers again. And thank you to all the speakers, to all the participants, to all those who are present here today. And thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rajiv, and thanks all the speakers.
Thank you. Great event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Dr. Varshini sir, Rajiv sir.
Thanks to chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, our president and secretary. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We close the program.
Dr. Mahapatra, Dr.
Thank you.
Bansal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.